Hello everyone. Our group going to explain about the literature review and model development. Our group has 3 members, including me, Sevin Kim, and Winarif, and Bagus. So we are going to explain 4 subtopics, including the objective and method of literature review, and types of scientific literature. And the third one is the method of online searches. And the last one is understanding the link between problem formulations, research models, hypotheses, and conclusions in journal articles. So first of all, we need to know what literature means in this subject. In academic world, the term literature is often used to describe the collective body of scholarly works related to a topic. The literature usually consists of scholarly books or articles published in academic journals. Then what is literature review? I took this definition from our textbook. It's a very clear and detailed definition. A literature review is the selection of available documents, both published and unpublished, on the topic, which contain information, ideas, data, and evidence written from a particular standpoint to fulfill certain aims or express certain views on the nature of the topic and how it is to be investigated, and the effective evaluation of this document in relation to the research being proposed. So simply put, reviewing literature means finding previously published scholarly works that are relevant to the topic. Then, when do we need a literature review? There are many occasions when you might write a literature review. Your purpose is probably for an academic qualification, but there are other circumstances when a literature review is required. For example, a short section in a research proposal, or the early chapters in the dissertation, or introduction section in an academic paper, or it can be systematic review to inform evidence-based policy on practice. Then why do we have to do literature review? What is the purpose? The purpose of literature review includes introducing relevant terminology and to define key terms used in your writing. This is important because the same term may have different meanings depending on the context in which it is used. Definitions will also help you to give structure to your essay, article, or report. And the next purpose is to summarize current knowledge. Looking at previously published sources help you to gather ideas or information related to your topic. And it helps you to keep you up to date on current trends and major findings related to your interest. Also, it helps you to develop new research questions. And it's also good for generating and refining your own research ideas, and to provide a critical review which demonstrates awareness of the current state of knowledge in the subject area, and a synthesis of resources showing the strength and limitation, omissions, and bias, and how the research fits into this wider context. When undertaking a literature review, you should always be clear about why you are doing the review and what outcomes you expect from the completed work. This will help you plan how best to undertake the test. And this is the process of literature review. The first step is, of course, choosing, exploring, and focusing on topic. At this stage, you might discover that you need to edit your topic or the scope of your research as you learn more about the topic in the literature. Then, of course, you will need to do some research using article databases, the library catalog, Google Scholar, and other sources to find scholarly information. All along, you will be using your brain. You will want to evaluate what you find and select articles. books, and other publications that will be the most useful. Then you will need to read through these articles and try to understand, analyze, and critique what you read. And while researching and organizing your paper, you will collect a lot of information from many different sources. You can use citation management software to help you stay organized. Then, of course, you will need to write and revise your paper and create your final bibliography. One more thing, writing a literature review is a process, but it is not always a linear process. One step does lead to another, but sometimes your research or reading will point you back to earlier steps as you learn more about your topic and the literature. The next subtopic is going to about the types of scientific literature and how to approach the literature review.
From my colleague, my name is Bagus Sharma. Yes, I will be talking about the types of scientific literature. So the first step of a literature review involves the identification of the various published and unpublished materials that are available on the topic of interest and gaining access to these. The quality of literature review depends on a cautious selection and reading of books, academic and professional journals, reports, theses, so on and so forth, available on the list. Therefore, as a rule, you will need to use a combination of information sources. Precise combination of resources depends on the nature and the objective of the research project. So the following slides, I will be explaining on how to approach these literature according to our studies. So first of all, textbooks. So the traits they cover a broad range of topics thoroughly. They offer good starting points from which to find more detailed sources, but however, it tends to be less up to date since it's a physical copy. It's kind of hard to have an up to date version. So journals, like their nature, articles in academic journals have generally been peer reviewed. So that means like they've been tested by people within the professional fields. So the overview of all the research, important research in a specific area, and detailed description of the purpose, methods, and results. Next. The nature of thesis has somewhat the same structure and characteristic as an academic journal article, and it provides an exhaustive or a thorough review of a specific area of a study. Conference proceedings, they provide the latest research that has not been published yet, quite valuable if you are working in a relatively new area or domain. However, since most of the stuff are not published into, they're not legally published, you have to critically assess the quality of this information source and also the experience of the speaker itself. Unpublished manuscripts, newspaper, and reports, the traits, they're super up to date, and at times they can provide a useful source of specific market, industry, or company information. However, they are not always unbiased, and this only applies for newspaper and reports, since the writer can also put their views and opinions based on the specific topics instead of being biased. The internet, since there are an abundance of information available and they are relatively cheap. However, they are unregulated and unmonitored. Determining the usefulness and reliability of the information is highly required before putting it into the literature review or study. So method of online literature searches is the third part. In the past, one had to manually go through several bibliography indexes, which list the journals, books, and other sources in published work. However, with the existence of modern technology, it had brought a set of advantages that helped researchers to focus on their material. These are four electrical resources that are commonly seen at their disposal. So first of all is electrical journals, and then full text databases, which provides a full text of the article, and then bibliography databases. They display only the bibliographic citations, names, authors, the title of the article or book, sources of publication, year, volume, and the number of page. And fourth, abstract databases provide abstract or summary article, but they don't really give the full text of an article or a manuscript. And besides these four, there are other countless databases that are now available and accessible for an inexpensive price in the World Wide Web. So evaluating literature, it's important to take a glance into the section of books or articles to determine their relevance. So you can start off from looking at their title, which may suggest whether the material give a thorough or brief review of the study that you are trying to look at. The app usually provides an overview of the study purpose, general research strategy, findings, and conclusion. And then introduction provides an overview of the problem addressed by the researcher.
Table of content and the first chapter. This may assess the relevance of the book. So to assess the quality of researches, you can ask these questions.
Continuing from my colleague, my name is Wiwa, and I'll be talking about the documenting the literature review. The objective of this step is to convince the reader that researcher is knowledgeable enough about the problem area because they have previously did the preliminary research, which is really crucial to conduct the main research. Also, there are several aspects that need to be included when you are documenting the literature review. There are databases search, time periods covered, number of results retrieved, as well as the latest update of the databases available. Also, if you have any notes or comments for the further research, it is good to put any comments. Furthermore, there are examples of accepted methods when doing a documentation. The most popular one is the American Psychological Association style, also known as APA style. There's also the Chicago Manual style and Turabian's Manual for Writers. For ethical issues, there are several examples of ethical issues related to academic journal or theoretical review. The first one is about the misrepresenting the work of other people. It occurs when someone inappropriately credits the work of other people. This will result to a situation called content falsification, in which the publication of a work can be false or untrue. This can trigger a chaotic situation. For the second one is the plagiarism, and I do believe that we are all familiar with this term. Basically, it is any action that takes other people's work without giving any credits or attribution. But there are still many forms of plagiarisms beyond copying and pasting text into your own work. The first one is a direct plagiarism. It is the most basic one. You're just copying and pasting the text. The second one is a self-plagiarism. For example, if you're a student and you submit your work into 2 different classes without any permission of your professor, it means that your action is categorized as self-plagiarism. For the third one is a mosaic plagiarism. It is sometimes called patch writing or paraphrasing, in which you are changing some words or sentences by using synonyms, but still maintaining the same general structure of a whole journal. For the fourth one is accidental plagiarism. It is defined as unintentionally paraphrases a source by using similar words or sentence without giving any credits or attribution. So for the part 4, the final part, I'll be talking about the link between problem formulation research models, hypotheses, and conclusions in journal article. When talking about these four components, there is one obvious relationship, which is these four components are making a good steps on making a theoretical framework. The theoretical framework itself is defined as a structure that can hold or support any theory of research. It also represents the phenomena which includes the variable or concepts which are related to each other. So these three are the general steps of theoretical framework. The first one is introducing the concepts or variables. It is really obvious that when you are conducting a research, you have to search for a topic or a problem formulation that you want to discuss in the further research. For the second one is the developing a conceptual model. So in this part, you are choosing the best research models that suit your problem formulation. And for the third one, you're coming up with a theory related to the variables. These steps represent the hypothesis, as you want to come up with a valid and arguable hypothesis that can be tested during your research. As previously mentioned, the problem formulation is the first step, which is the core of your thesis, and you should always return to this part when you lose track during your further research or writing process. The problem formulation is also based on rationale, which obtained through explorative research. There are several characteristics of problem formulation. The first one is reflecting on important issues or needs. When picking a topic, you want to pick issues or any topics that can be supported by a factual evidence. This will represent the characteristic number 2. And for the characteristic number 3, it's suggesting a testable hypothesis. So if you choose a topic that is not valid or arguable, you cannot come up with a good hypothesis, which is a good hypothesis is testable and arguable. Furthermore, there are several steps of problem formulation. The first one is to specify the research objectives as the goal of problem formulation itself to make it clearly what is your objective of the whole research. Second one, you review the context or environment and explore its nature. So after you pick a topic, you want to explore any variables related to the topics. And finally, you provide alternative approaches by giving a testable hypothesis. The next one is research model. There are many types of research models, but the most popular one is the quantitative and qualitative. For the quantitative, it is to quantify problem by using numerical data as a source of research, and then you transform it into some kind of statistics or diagram or even a table. As for qualitative research, it is used to uncover trends by looking at other people's opinion, thoughts, idea, or even a perspective. When choosing a proper research models, there are several arguments relating to the natural science research and social science research. Then you do believe that natural science research will match perfectly with the quantitative method, while social science will match with the qualitative research method. This is because the social science research use opinions, values, traditions, and cultures as a base which can be imprecise. But choosing the research model itself really depends on the objective of the research itself. But some people do prefer to use the quantitative method because it is more scientific, objective, which can be less biased and acceptable. This is because when you're using a quantitative research method, you have to conduct several research related to the factual data about it. The next one is hypothesis, also known as tentative statement, which predicts that what you expect to find in your empirical data. Also, there are several types of hypothesis: the directional hypothesis, non-directional hypothesis, and alternate and null hypothesis. For the directional hypothesis, we also call it the one-tail hypothesis because of the direction of relationship between variables is well indicated. The directions can be positive or negative. While for the non-directional hypothesis, it is called two-tailed tests, which offer no indication of the direction. For alternate and null hypothesis, I believe that we're all familiar with it, as the alternate hypothesis express the relationship between two variables or differences between groups. And for null hypothesis, the objective is to set up to be rejected in order to support the alternate hypothesis. Lastly, the conclusions, which is very general, but there are still several things that need to be included in order for you to make a good conclusions. The first one is the main agreement and disagreements in the literature. As previously mentioned, there are several hypotheses that need to be testable during the research. You have to include what is the result of your research, whether it is matched with the theory available or not. The second one is any gaps in the research. There's no such thing called perfect research, so you have to write any notes or comments related to the gray area of your research, which can be conducted in the future research. And the last one is the overall perspective of the research. It is really obvious that you need to include the overall result of your research itself. And I think that's all for our presentation. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.